Set 1. Final cumulative score, 85 or 100. Reason: if NASA's physical rocketry technology operates at a 60 or 100, mastery of gross matter or hardware, but high energy cost and low sustainability. The scriptural technology scores higher because it masters the source code, consciousness or software, rather than just the screen matter one. The pilot factor, plus 25 points. NASA technology addresses the vehicle, but fails to address the operator. The scriptures, Yoga Sutras, Tantra, provide a precise engineering manual for the human nervous system, mental stability, and cognitive processing. A 60-score rocket with a depressed or unstable astronaut fails the scriptural tech, fixes the biological and psychological unit, which is the prerequisite for any sustainable exploration. 2. Efficiency and entropy. Modern tech fights the laws of physics, burning massive fuel to escape gravity or entropy. Scriptural systems, Siddhanta, Ayurveda, align with cosmic cycles, yugas, circadian rhythms, using the universe's natural energy flows, prana or gravity, rather than fighting them. This represents a higher level of data comprehension regarding how the universe actually functions. 3. Data durability. The medical and astronomical data, Sushruta surgery, Surya Siddhanta's time cycles, have remained valid for millennia without updates, whereas modern tech becomes obsolete every decade. 4. The deduction, minus 15 points. The score is not 100 because the user interface is poor. Unlike modern tech, which is democratic, anyone can push a button. Scriptural tech requires intense, high-friction personal discipline, sadhana, to access, making it less scalable for the general population. I. Puranic literature. Puranas. Kalki Purana. The Shambhala archetype. Beyond a physical location, Shambhala is described as a spiritual frequency where the veil between the material and subtle worlds is thinnest accessing. It requires vibrational alignment rather than geographical travel. The parrot Shuka, divine intellect. The parrot that communicates between Kalki and his wisdom Shakti, Padmavati, represents the Sushumna Nadi, the central channel of insight that bridges the gap between raw power and divine wisdom. The mechanism of Adharma, it details the specific entropic lineage of Kali, the demon, not the goddess, showing how vices like greed, lobha, and wrath, krodha, are not just emotions but distinct, self-replicating entities that fracture human DNA and consciousness. The sword Ratnamaru, Kalki's sword, represents the weaponization of viveka, discernment. It does not just kill physical enemies but severs the karmic tethers that bind souls to the illusion of the Kali Yuga. Restoration via subtraction. The text suggests that the Satya Yuga, Golden Age, is not built but revealed the avatar functions as a cosmic solvent to dissolve the artificial layers of society, allowing the natural dharma to re-emerge spontaneously. Vishnu Purana. The triple affliction, Tapatraya. It categorizes all suffering into Adhyatmika, self-caused, Adhibautika, caused by others, and Adidaivika, cosmic or environmental, providing a diagnostic tool to stop blaming fate for errors of judgment or biology. The concept of Vishnu Maya. It explains illusion not as falsehood, but as creative potency. The reality we see is a localized simulation maintained by Vishnu's dream. Realizing this allows one to hack the simulation rather than just suffer within it. Dhruva's unshakable will. The story of Dhruva teaches the technique of ekagrata, one-pointed focus, so intense that it forces the cosmos to reorganize itself around the practitioner, literally turning a human into a pole star or center of gravity. The Jamantaka jewel, a metaphor for the burden of unearned wealth or power. It generates gold, resources, daily, but invites immediate calamity if the possessor lacks absolute purity, illustrating the radioactive nature of high energy. Pralaya, dissolution, physics. It offers a terrifyingly precise description of the heat death of the universe, where the sun expands to burn the three worlds, teaching the meditator how to simulate this death internally to burn off ego without dying physically. Srimad Bhagavatam. The Virata Rupa meditation. It outlines a specific visualization technique, where one maps the entire cosmos onto their physical body, rivers as veins, mountains as bones, dissolving the barrier between the microcosm and macrocosm to cure alienation. Kapila Sankhya, quantum evolution. It describes how matter precipitates from consciousness specifically, how the tanmatras, subtle sense objects like pure sound or touch, coagulate to form the gross elements, offering a roadmap to reverse engineer matter back into energy. The Gopi Bhava, emotional alchemy. This is not mere romance, but a high tantra technique of transmuting kama, lust, into prema, divine love. By shifting the object of desire from the finite body to the infinite spirit, utilizing the brain's dopamine pathways for liberation. The 24 Gurus of Avadhuta Dattatreya, a radical methodology of learning where nature, a spider, a moth, a child, is observed with scientific detachment to extract survival data, teaching that the guru is a function of your own attentiveness, not a person. Time as the force of entropy, it personifies time, kala, as the serpent force that drags the future into the past. Mastering anxiety requires realizing that time acts only on the body, while the witness consciousness stands outside the stream. Shiva Purana. The Jyotirlinga grid, the 12 Jyotirlingas, are described not just as temples, but as pillars of light anchoring the Earth's energy grid. Meditating on them connects one to the specific chakra points of the planet for massive energetic boosts. Vibhuti, sacred ash, as insulation. The application of ash is a technology to insulate the nerve endings and subtle body from external karmic static and social contagion, sealing the aura so internal energy, ojas, doesn't leak out. The science of Rudraksha. It details the specific electromagnetic properties of Rudraksha beads based on face count or mukhi, explaining how they act as capacitors to stabilize the heartbeat and central nervous system during intense meditation. Maha Shivaratri mechanics. It explains the planetary alignment on this night as a natural upsurge of energy in the human spine. Staying awake is not a ritual rule, but a biological necessity to utilize this centrifugal force for raising kundalini. The third eye, Jnana Chakshu. This is described not as a physical organ, but as the pineal activation that occurs when the solar, Pingala, and lunar Ida channels fuse, burning the seeds of past karma that are stored in the causal body. Linga Purana. The linga as cosmic ellipsoid, it defines the linga as the most stable mathematical form, the ellipsoid. Representing the pre-atomic state of the universe, before it cooled into form, meditating on it resets the mind to its factory settings. Pashupata Yoga. A severe psychological deconditioning process, where the aspirant intentionally acts insane or breaks social taboos to destroy the desire for social validation, which is seen as the heaviest chain binding the soul. The Mrityunjaya Vidya. The secret science of conquering death, which involves vibrating the system at a frequency that revitalizes the amrita, nectar, dripping from the brain center, reversing the aging process caused by oxidation and stress. Vamadeva face of Shiva. The esoteric northern face of the linga, representing the healing and preserving power-specific focus. Here cures chronic ailments by aligning the body's water element with cosmic tides. The Tandava physics, Shiva's dance, is the rhythm of subatomic oscillation. The text implies that by syncing one's breath and heart rate to this cosmic rhythm, one can enter a state of flow where effort becomes effortless action. Skanda Purana. Kshitra Mahatmya, Geomancy. It provides the blueprint of sacred space, explaining why certain coordinates, like Kashi or Arunachala, naturally accelerate spiritual progress due to the specific mineral and magnetic composition of the soil. The Kartikeya archetype of war. Skanda represents the war against the lower ego. His spear, Vel, symbolizes the focused, piercing intellect that destroys ignorance, without hesitation a manual for mental ruthlessness against one's own weaknesses. Pradakshina, circumambulation, science. Walking clockwise around a consecrated center generates a vortex of energy. The text explains this as winding a magnetic coil to charge the body with the deity's stored potency. The power of dana, charity, at tirthas, giving at a vortex point, multiplies the karmic effect. The text treats charity not as moral duty but as an economic investment in one's future destiny, creating a vacuum that nature must fill. Arunachala as fire. It identifies the hill of Arunachala not as earth, but as the element of fire, Agni. Solidified, merely thinking of it burns the mental files, vasanas, that create future births. Markandeya Purana. The Devi Kavacham, armor. A sonic shielding technique where specific mantras are placed on body parts to create an impenetrable subtle body armor, preventing psychic attacks and energy vampirism from hostile environments. Durga Saptashati, the psychology of demons. The demons Madhu, honey or pleasure, and Kaitaba, insects or bitterness, represent the duality of craving and aversion. Killing them requires the intervention of yoga nidra, conscious sleep, not brute force. Rakta Bija, the replicating virus. The demon whose blood drops create clones, symbolizes negative thought loops and obsessive-compulsive habits. The solution, Kali drinking the blood, teaches that you must starve the habit of attention or energy to kill it. Dattatreya's Yoga, an unconventional path, focusing on naturalism and rejection of artificial social constructs, emphasizing that the ultimate liberation is sahaja, natural state, not a forced, rigid asceticism. The Manvantara transitions. It explains the reset periods between epochs as windows of opportunity where the laws of physics and biology are rewritten. Advanced souls can insert code during these transitions to shape the next era. Brahmanda Purana, Lalita Sahasranama, 1,000 names. These are not just names, but sound codes. Chanting them specifically stimulates the 72,000 nadis, energy channels, of the body, tuning the human instrument to the frequency of the Divine Mother. The Sri Vidya diagram, Sri Chakra. It offers the geometric map of the human consciousness. The central bindu is the singularity of the self, and the surrounding triangles represent the expansion of the one into the many map for navigating back to the center. The Anda, cosmic egg, theory, it conceptualizes the universe as a closed, egg-shaped system with multiple layers, shells. To escape, one must pierce through the layers of elements, earth, water, fire, etc. via meditation, a process called Bhumikajaya. Bhargava Ramas, martial science. It contains the lineage of Parashurama, hinting at the connection between martial prowess, Dhanurvidya, and spiritual asceticism, showing that nonviolence comes from strength, not weakness. The Hanumat Kavacha, a protective shield based on Hanuman's energy, specifically designed to nullify the negative influence of Saturn, Shani, and other restrictive planetary forces that cause depression or delay. Vayu Purana. Pranayama as creation, it links the specific rhythms of cosmic creation to the human breath cycle. The universe breathes by aligning your retention kumbhaka. With the cosmic pauses, you can halt the aging process. The Pasupata vow, a secret ascetic vow focusing on the control of the animal instincts, Pasu, through bathing in ashes and absolute silence, designed to break the hypnotic spell of social conditioning. Gaya Shraddha science. It details the metaphysics of ancestor worship, explaining how specific sound frequencies and food offerings release genetic memory blocks, Pitru dosha, that manifest as hereditary illnesses or bad luck. The geography of Jambudvipa. While seemingly mythological, the concentric ring island descriptions contain encoded maps of the subtle body chakra system and the toroidal energy field surrounding the human heart. Shiva's Ganas, retinue. The Ganas represent the chaotic, subconscious forces and instincts. The text teaches that one cannot suppress them, but must organize them under the command of Ganesh, logic, to serve the higher self. Brahma Purana. The river Godavari as a nadi. It establishes the river Godavari not just as water, but as an external manifestation of the energy channel, capable of washing away mental silt, sin, emphasizing the hydrotherapy aspect of pilgrimage. Purushottama Kshetra, Puri, mystery. It describes the specific energy of the Jagannath temple as a place where the rules of caste and purity are suspended. Mahaprasad, teaching the secret of transcending duality through divine intimacy. Solar worship, Surya Sadhana. It contains potent methods for gazing at the sun, safely, at sunrise, to intake tejas, radiance, which converts into willpower and intellectual sharpness. Karma Vipaka, ripening of karma. It explains the precise timeline of how actions incubate before manifesting as results. Knowing this allows one to perform prayashita, atonement, to neutralize the seed before it sprouts as a disaster. The logic of idol worship. It explains the idol not as God, but as a yantra, machine, that anchors a specific deity's frequency without the precise ritual of prana pratishta, life installation. The idol remains mere stone. Narada Purana. The Bhakti Sutra integration. It codifies devotion into a science, distinguishing between Gauna Bhakti, ritualistic or preparatory, and Mukhya Bhakti, spontaneous or absorption, showing how to transition from effort to flow state. Haridwar or Mokshapuri secrets. It details the specific astral gateways present in holy cities, explaining that dying in these zones, conscious exit, utilizes the Earth's electromagnetic anomalies to propel the soul out of the reincarnation trap. The Mohini Avatar Tactics. It analyzes the nature of divine delusion, how the ego is tricked into its own destruction by the allure of beauty, teaching the aspirant to use desire as bait to catch the mind. Ikadashi Fasting Biology. It explains the lunar influence on the body's water retention, and digestive fire fasting on Ikadashi is presented as a bio-weekly system reboot to prevent the accumulation of toxins. Asama. Nama Aparata. Offenses against the name. It lists the 10 offenses that render chanting useless, the most critical being criticizing other seekers, which immediately short-circuits the spiritual battery of the chanter. 2. Astronomical, mathematical, and time science texts. Surya Siddhanta. The yuga cycles as resonance. Time is not linear, but cyclic. The yugas represent the changing frequency of the solar system as it orbits a dual star center, affecting human cognitive capacity, dharma, directly. Planetary gravity as karma, the grahas, planets, are described as graspers or seizers, magnetic forces that pull on the individual's subtle body, literally executing karma through electromagnetic influence. Pole star alignment. The calculation of the precession of the equinoxes serves as a clock for the great year. Knowing this allows civilizations to prepare for cataclysms that occur at specific hour markers of the cycle. Trigonometry of shadows. The use of shadow lengths, nomon, to calculate time, teaches that reality is a projection by measuring the shadow phenomena. One can infer the source, noumena, and the position of the observer. Mana, measurement, creates maya. The act of measuring quantifies the infinite. The text implies that mathematical definition is what collapses the wave function of the divine into the particle reality of the material world. Aryabhatya. Relativity of motion. Aryabhata's statement that the stars are fixed, the earth rotates, was a radical shift in perspective, teaching that the observer's movement creates the illusion of the world's movement, a key Vedantic insight applied to physics. 0, shunya, as potency. 0 is not nothing but placeholder for potential. In calculations, it functions like Brahman invisible itself, but giving value to everything else. Digits, placed around it. The Kataka pulverizer algorithm, a method for solving indeterminate equations, $ax plus by equals C dollars. Metaphysically, it represents the ability to find a precise solution, dharma, amidst infinite variables of life where direct logic fails. Pi, as irrational. Aryabhata describes pi dollars as approximate, hinting at the understanding that the circle, heaven, can never be perfectly squared. Earth, the spiritual, can never be fully captured by the material. Adhyaka versus Ardharatrika. The debate on whether the day starts at sunrise or midnight highlights the importance of calibration points. Spiritual practice requires fixing a reference point, Ishta Devata, to measure progress. Brihat Samhita. Groundwater detection, Dakargala. It details how to find underground water by observing termite mounds, specific trees, and snake behavior, teaching that nature always displays surface signs of hidden deep resources. Intuition. Physiognomy, Samudrika Shastra. The reading of body marks and features is not superstition but biological pattern recognition, based on the premise that the subtle body prints its history onto the physical form during gestation. Vastu Vidya. Architecture. The directional alignments of buildings are designed to minimize resistance to the Earth's magnetic field. Living in a misaligned house creates constant low-level stress on the nervous system. Omenology Shakuna. The study of bird movements and random events teaches synchronicity, that the environment is a single connected web, and a disturbance in one part, a bird flying left, signals a ripple in the whole. Perfume making Gandhayukti. The complex mathematics of combining sense serves as a practice in combinatorics of pleasure, showing how finite elements can create infinite varieties of experience. Maya. Panchasiddhantika. The synthesis of truth. By comparing 5 different astronomical systems, Varahamihira teaches that scientific models are relative approximations, not absolute truths. Wisdom lies in synthesizing the useful parts of conflicting systems. Correction, bija, is essential. The acceptance that astronomical formulas drift over centuries and need bija, seed corrections, implies that spiritual traditions must also update their software to match the current yuga. Solar versus lunar time. The harmonization of the solar year, structure or career, and lunar month, emotion or mind is the key to balancing the masculine and feminine energies within the psyche. Meridian mathematics. The concept of the prime meridian, Ujjain, establishes the need for a center from which all else is measured. In yoga, the center is the self. Without it, all experiences are relative and chaotic. Eclipse mechanics, understanding the shadow of the earth. Rahu, falling on the moon, mind, demystifies fear. Eclipses are treated as high-gravity moments for meditation, not disasters to be feared. 3. Tantra and esoteric scriptures. Tantra Shastras. The body as yantra. The human body is not a vessel, but a biomachine designed for generating high-voltage consciousness. Every organ corresponds to a cosmic frequency. You are a walking radio receiver for the divine. Mantra Chaitanya. A mantra is just sound until it is awakened Chaitanya by the consciousness of the guru or intense friction of practice. Dead mantras have no effect. Living mantras can alter physical reality. Panchamakara, 5 megaseconds. Sublimation, the infamous use of meat, wine, etc., is actually a test of brakes. Can you engage with the strongest stimulants of the senses and maintain absolute witness consciousness? It is a path for heroes, Veera, not the weak. Nyasa, installation. The ritual of placing deities on specific body parts, hands, chest, head, is a method of overriding the body's self-image. You literally program your hand to be the hand of Shiva, changing how you interact with the world. Bhuta Shuddhi, the process of dissolving the body elements back into their source, earth to water, water to fire, is a daily rehearsal of death. It cleanses the deep subconscious trauma stored in the cellular memory. Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. The gap between breaths. The text identifies the split-second pause between inhalation and exhalation as the doorway to the absolute. By resting attention there, one slips through the crack in the ego's continuity. Spanda, divine tremor. Reality is not static, it is a vibration. The first impulse of desire or fear is pure energy, before it becomes a story. Catching the impulse before it becomes a thought liberates the energy for spiritual use. Ordinary experience as gateways, techniques to find God in the pleasure of eating, the joy of seeing a friend, or even in a sneeze. It teaches that the divine is not elsewhere but is the very substrate of intensity in any experience. Void-centric focus. Meditating on the void in the hollows of bones or the empty sky deprograms the mind's addiction to objects. When the mind has no object to grasp, it collapses into the subject, self. Looking at the universe as a magic show, viewing the world as a magic trick, Indrajala instantly detaches the viewer from the outcome of events. If it's a show, you enjoy the drama without fearing the tragedy. Rudra Yamala. Paravak, supreme speech. The universe is built of sound. Before speech is spoken, Vaikari. It exists as intention, Pashyanti. Mastering this level allows one to manifest reality through true speech, Satya Vachana. Kundalini as kinetic potential. It treats Kundalini not as a myth, but as the stored coil of potential energy at the base of the spine, like a compressed spring. Releasing it requires a controlled explosion, otherwise it fries the circuits, nervous system. The science of mudras. Hand gestures are seal circuits that redirect the flow of prana, preventing it from leaking out of the fingertips. They act as switches to route energy to specific brain centers. Guru Paduka, the sandals of the guru, represent the grounding connection. Worshipping them connects the disciple to the entire lineage's battery pack, allowing them to draw on power they haven't personally earned. Night worship. Ratri Sadhana. The specific quietude of midnight is the only time the ambient psychic noise of society dies down, allowing for the subtle signals of the spirit to be heard. Kularnava Tantra. The 7 ulises, stages of joy. Spiritual progress is measured by the quality of joy, from the gross joy of senses to the uncaused joy of the self. If your practice doesn't make you happier, it's failing. Secrecy, Gupta Sadhana. Energy grows in containment. Talking about your spiritual experiences leaks the pressure required to break through. The text commands secrecy not for elitism, but for thermodynamic efficiency. The necessity of the body, contrary to asceticism that hates the body, Kularnava states the body is the temple. Without a strong physical container, the high voltage of enlightenment will shatter the nervous system. Diksha, initiation, as DNA transfer. Initiation is described as a transfer of spiritual genetic material from guru to disciple, which overrides the disciple's karmic limitations. Kaula ethics. the definition of sin is altered. It is not breaking social rules, but contraction of consciousness. Anything that expands you is virtue. Anything that shrinks you into fear or smallness is sin. Mahanirvana Tantra. Brahma Mantra for the Kali Yuga. It introduces universal mantras that do not require strict ritual purity, acknowledging that in the Kali Yuga, people are too distracted for complex rites. Simplicity is the key to power. Social Tantra. It integrates Tantra with householder life, teaching that marriage is a spiritual partnership, and that honesty in business is a form of accumulation of Satya Shakti, power of truth. The Kaula Circle. Chakra Puja. In the circle of initiates, caste and gender distinctions are suspended. This ritual destruction of social hierarchy is a shock therapy to realize the oneness of all souls. Liberation via enjoyment, bhoga, and moksha. It rejects the dichotomy of world versus spirit. One can enjoy the world, bhoga, and attain liberation, moksha, simultaneously, if the enjoyment is offered to the divine first. Truth as the supreme austerity. In the Kali Yuga, simple truth-telling is equivalent to standing on one leg for 1,000 years. The text elevates integrity to the highest mystical practice. Yogini Tantra. Yoni Tattva, the worship of the yoni, origin, is the worship of the creative matrix of the universe. It is the void from which all forms emerge and into which they collapse, the ultimate black hole of the divine. Sacred geography of Kamakya. The land itself is mapped as the body of the goddess. Living in these zones aligns the body's biological cycles, menstruation or sleep, with the earth's cycles. Blood offerings, symbolic. The demand for blood is the demand for the vitality of the animal nature. You must sacrifice your animal self, instincts, to feed the high-frequency goddess consciousness. The 64 yoginis. These are 64 distinct subpersonalities or psychic powers. Mastering them means integrating the fragmented parts of the psyche into a unified command. Shavasana, corpse meditation. Sitting on a corpse to meditate symbolizes sitting on one's own mortality. It conquers the fear of death by facing the physical reality of decay until it no longer evokes terror. IV. Agamic literature. Agamas general. The temple as a battery. Temples are not built for congregation but as storage capacitors for cosmic energy. The structure, geometry, and the idol, conducting material, hold the charge generated by mantras. Prana Pratista. The technology of installing life. It teaches that matter is inanimate only until consciousness is focused into it. We can animate objects to serve as spiritual assistants. The 4 padas, stages. Knowledge, jnana, is useless without ritual, kriya. Conduct, charya. And union, yoga. It enforces a holistic lifestyle. You cannot think high thoughts while living a low life. Mantra, yantra, tantra triad. Mantra is the software, code. Yantra is the hardware, machine. And tantra is the technique of operation. All 3 must align for the program to run. Acharya, teacher. Qualifications. The agamas are ruthless about the quality of the priest or teacher. A flawed conductor disrupts the flow of current. The teacher must be a stepaka one, who can establish the divine firmly. Shaiva agamas. Pashu Pashupati, the soul, pashu or beast, is tied by the rope, pasha or karma, and needs the master, pati or Shiva, to untie it. The rope consists of 3 strands: ego, karma, and illusion. Shaktipata, descent of grace. Enlightenment is not earned, it is a lightning strike. The practice is only to become a lightning rod, conductive, to catch the strike when it happens. Charya, service. Sweeping the temple floor is considered as high a yoga as meditation, because it crushes the I am special ego. It is the yoga of humble action. Shivoham, I am Shiva. The radical identity shift. You do not worship Shiva, you role-play as Shiva until the mask becomes the face. The 5 acts of Shiva, creation, preservation, destruction, concealment, tirobhava, and grace, anugraha. Realizing that your own confusion, concealment, is also an act of God brings peace. Vaishnava Agamas. Arka Avatara. The deity in the temple is a descent, avatar, of God in a form accessible to the senses. It is God agreeing to be trapped in stone to be available for the devotee. Prapati, total surrender. The cat way, Marjara Nyaya, the kitten does nothing, the mother cat carries it. This is the secret of bypassing the arduous struggle of yoga by simply letting go. Kainkarya, divine service. Liberation is not merging into void, but obtaining the eternal job of serving the divine. Activity does not stop in liberation, it becomes perfected. The 5 forms of Vishnu para absolute. Vyuha, cosmic emanations. Vibhava, avatars. Antaryami, inner controller, and Archa, idol. Knowing which interface to access for which problem is key. Mudras in worship. The intricate hand gestures during puja are passwords to unlock specific energetic doors in the subtle body of the deity. Shakta agamas. Antaryaga, internal worship. The external ritual is just a training wheel for the internal ritual. The fire pit is the navel, the ladle is the breath. The offering is the senses. The 36 tattvas, an expanded map of cosmology beyond the 24 of Sankhya, adding the pure tattvas of consciousness. It maps the gradient from pure God consciousness down to the solidity of a rock. Mantra as deity, the goddess is the mantra. Reciting the mantra is not calling her, it is reconstructing her body in your throat. Kavacha, armoring. Before invoking power, one must shield the body. High energy in a weak container causes madness. The Kavacha seals the aura. Bhutalipi, the alphabet, is the genetic code of the universe. The Matrikas, little mothers, are the letters A to Kisha, which govern the body's tissues. Mastering the alphabet is mastering biology. Viyoga and inner science texts. Hatha Yoga Pradipika. Vajrali Mudra. The controversial and secretive technique of sexual sublimation, drawing the seminal fluid or energy back up through the urethra, literally or energetically, to reabsorb the creative potential into the brain. Kachari Mudra. Cutting the frenulum of the tongue to insert it into the nasal cavity, stimulating the pituitary gland to secrete amrita, nectar, inducing a state of suspended animation and hungerlessness. Nadanusandana. Tracking the internal sound, anahatanada, in the right ear. This sound acts as a tow rope. By focusing on it, the mind is automatically pulled into the silence of the heart. Sushumna activation. The only goal of asana and pranayama is to force prana into the central channel. If prana flows in the side channels, ida or pingala, one is trapped in duality or time. Mahabandha, the great lock, engaging the anal, abdominal, and throat locks simultaneously. This acts as a pressure cooker, forcing the kundalini energy to shoot upward by blocking all downward and outward exits. Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Samyama, the laser focus. The combination of dharana, dhyana, and samadhi on a single object. Samyama is the software tool to download knowledge directly from an object. Example. Samyama on the sun equals knowledge of solar systems. Ritambara prajna, truth-bearing intellect. A level of intuition attained in samadhi that never errs. It is direct downloading of reality without the corruption of logic or memory. Pratipaksha bhavana, the psychological trick of replacing a negative thought immediately with its opposite. Example, hate with love. It rewires the neural pathways to prevent negative spirals. Kaivalya, aloneness. The goal is not union, but isolation of the Purusha, spirit, from Prakriti, matter. It is realizing you are the screen, not the movie. Karma Ashaya, the reservoir of karma. Patanjali explains that karma is stored in a latent vault. Meditation burns these seeds before they can germinate into destiny. Garanda Samhita. Saptanga Yoga, 7 limbs. Unlike Patanjali's 8, this system starts with Shat Karma, purification. You cannot practice yoga with a toxic body. Cleaning the stomach or colon is the first step to enlightenment. Jyoti Dhyana, meditation on the flame in the eyebrow center. It burns the web of karma and gives the power of siddhis, psychic abilities, by activating the command center, Ajna Chakra. Murcha Pranayama, swooning breath. Intentional fainting or suspension of consciousness through breath retention to cut off the mind's connection to the world, inducing a mini-death to experience the void. Viparita Karani, inversion. The process of reversing the flow of the sun, gastric fire, and moon, brain nectar. Usually, the fire burns the nectar, aging. Inversion keeps the nectar safe, granting longevity. Gatastha Yoga, the pot yoga. The body is a clay pot. If unbaked, untrained, it dissolves in the water of the world. Yoga is the fire that bakes the pot so it can hold the water of immortality. Shiva Samhita. The 4 states of yoga. Arambha, start. Gata, pot. Padichaya, intimacy. Nishpati, consummation. It details the specific biological symptoms of each stage, example. Perspiration, tremors, so the yogi knows their progress. Pranavayas, it gives precise locations of the 5 airs. Apana is the death force, downward. Yoga is the art of reversing apana to meet prana, upward. At the navel, the collision releases kundalini. Laya Yoga, the method of dissolution. Merging the mind into the subtle sound or light, until the eye sense dissolves like salt in water. Siddhis as obstacles, it lists magical powers but warns they are the devil's candy intended to distract the yogi from the final goal. The right of the householder, unlike many texts, it explicitly states that a householder living in Dharma can achieve faster success than a forest renunciate because they face the fire of daily life. Physics. Vedantic and philosophical texts. Upanishads. Neti, not this, not this. The algorithm of subtraction. You cannot find the self. You can only discard what is not the self. When everything removable is removed, the remainder is truth. The 2 birds. The famous metaphor of the bird eating fruit, ego, and the bird watching, Atman. The shift from experiencer to witness is the jump from suffering to freedom. Panchakosha, 5 sheaths. We are not a body with a soul, but a soul wrapped in 5 layers: food, prana, mind, intellect, bliss. Depression usually lives in the mind sheath. The cure is moving focus to the bliss sheath. Om as the bow, the self is the arrow. Brahman is the target, and Om is the bow. One must shoot oneself into the infinite with the tension of focus. Apramata, non-distraction. Tat tvam asi, that thou art. The bioequation. You are not a part of the whole, you are the whole playing a part. The drop is the ocean, in chemical composition. Brahma Sutras. Adhyasa, superimposition. The root error. We superimpose the qualities of the body, mortality, onto the soul, and the qualities of the soul, eternity, onto the body. Clearing this confusion is moksha. Janmadhyasya yata, that from which the origin, etc. of the universe proceeds. It defines God not as a person, but as the intelligent source code of reality. Samanvaya, harmonization. The principle that all scriptures, despite apparent contradictions, point to the same non-dual reality if interpreted correctly. It resolves the conflict of data. Phala, fruit, belongs to the action. The result is built into the action itself. You don't get punished for your sins, you get punished by your sins. The reaction is the action returning home. Aviroda, non-contradiction. Logic cannot disprove Brahman because logic relies on duality, and Brahman is the substrate of logic. You cannot use a ruler to measure the space the ruler occupies. Mandukya Karika. Asparsha Yoga, the touch-free yoga. It is the path of remaining untouched by the mind's projections. It requires no pose, only the constant stance of I am the witness. Ajitivada, non-origination. The radical truth that nothing was ever created. The world is a hologram. The snake never existed. Only the rope. There is no creation, no destruction, only the appearance of it. Turiya, the 4th. Waking, dreaming, and deep sleep are projections on the screen of Turiya. Turiya is not a state. It is the stateless background. Accessing it destroys the fear of death, which is just a shift of state. Vaitathya, falsity of the world. Dream water cannot quench waking thirst, but waking water also cannot quench the thirst for truth. Both are relative realities valid only within their own frame. Alata chakra, firebrand circle. If you wave a burning stick, it looks like a circle of fire. The circle is an illusion created by speed. The world is an illusion created by the vibration of consciousness. 7. Dharma and Smriti literature. Manusmriti. The debt system, Rina. A human is born with 3 debts. To the gods, paid by ritual. To the ancestors, paid by children or lineage. And to the sages, paid by study. You are not free until the books are balanced. The power of Tejas, in chastity. Conserving sexual energy builds Tejas, social radiance or authority. A Brahmin, intellectual, without restraint, is a snake without venom, powerless. Danda, the rod of punishment. Order is maintained not by love, but by the fear of Danda. It is the coercive force that keeps the big fish from eating the small fish. Matsya Nyaya. Gotra genetics. The strict rules on marriage lines are ancient eugenics designed to prevent inbreeding depression and maintain the strength of the genetic material for spiritual robustness. Samskaras. Rites of passage. These are not parties but biological programming events. They imprint the subconscious mind at critical transitions, birth, puberty, marriage, to align the individual with Dharma. Yajnavalkya Smriti. Mitakshara, inheritance law. The concept that one acquires a right to property by birth. It balances the family economy, ensuring resources are distributed to sustain the lineage, not hoarded by the patriarch. Vivahara, legal procedure. It outlines the documentary evidence supremacy. In the Kali Yuga, memory fails written contracts are the only dharma. It's a shift from trust-based to contract-based society. Apadharma, emergency law. Rules change in a crisis. What is a sin in normal times may be a duty in an emergency. Rigid morality is fatal. Flexible morality is survival. Atmastuti, self-praise, as sin. Praising oneself destroys merit immediately. It is a leak in the spiritual vessel. Humility is the seal that keeps the merit inside. Secret penances, for secret sins, secret penances, pranayama or chanting are prescribed. Public shame is not necessary. Internal correction is sufficient for the conscience. Narada Smriti, the divine ordeal, divya. The use of fire, water, or poison as lie detectors. It operates on the principle that guilt alters the body's vibration or physiology, making it susceptible to harm, while truth acts as a shield. Title to land. Possession is stronger than paper title if held for 3 generations. It acknowledges that use it or lose it is a natural law. Land belongs to the one who nurtures it. Recovering debt. The creditor has the right to use dharma, moral pressure, and upaya, trickery, to get money back. It acknowledges that money represents life energy and must be returned to balance the books. Independent women, unlike Manu, Narada gives more agency to women in specific contexts, especially regarding the choice of husband if the family fails to arrange it, showing a pragmatic view of social dynamics. Slave emancipation. It details the rituals for freeing slaves, breaking the jar, showing that bondage is a temporary economic state, not an eternal soul condition. Freedom is the natural state. Here are the 5 most valuable, diamond-like esoteric concepts for each text and system, selected for their structural depth and transformative potential. Itihasa adjacent and semi-canonical narratives. Yoga Vasista. The world as Sankalpa Matra. The physical world does not exist materially. It is purely solidified imagination, Sankalpa. The solidity of a rock is only the density of the collective mind's conviction. Changing the deep conviction instantly alters the physical object. Kakataliya Nyaya, Crow Coconut Logic. Causality is an illusion of the intellect. Events happen simultaneously. A crow lands, a coconut falls, and the mind invents a cause to feel safe. Reality is actually a causal and spontaneous. Realizing this destroys the anxiety of doing. The story of Lila, multiverse theory. It describes parallel realities occupying the same space but separated by frequency, Spanda. Queen Lila travels through the ether of consciousness to see her husband ruling in a different dimension, proving that here and there are frequency coordinates, not distances. Manolaya, dissolution of mind. The mind cannot be controlled by fighting it, which adds energy to it. It can only be dissolved by inquiry into its source. When you hunt for the thinker, the mind vanishes like a phantom, leaving only the infinite substrate. Jivanmukta state, living freedom. A psychological state where the operator acts with full intensity in the drama of life but retains internal coolness, Shitalata. Like a burnt rope that retains its shape but cannot bind anything. Harivamsa. The Ekanamsa mystery. The goddess Ekanamsa Subhadra represents the Yoga Maya, or the interface between the absolute Krishna and the active Balarama. She is the pause or gap between force and wisdom that makes creation possible. Parijata Apaharana, stealing the celestial tree. Krishna stealing the desire-granting tree from heaven to plant it on earth symbolizes immanence, dragging the highest celestial archetypes down into the dense material plane to divinize the earth, rather than escaping it. The psychology of Kamsa fear. Kamsa represents the ego that hears the voice from the sky, intuition, predicting its death. His attempt to kill every child, potential, reflects the ego's mechanism of aborting new spiritual insights before they can mature enough to dethrone it. Ancestral debt, Pitrurina, mechanics. It elaborates on how specific genetic lineages carry karmic software. The rituals described are biohacks to rewrite the genetic code, Gotra, and stop the transmission of trauma down the family line. The Yadav Kula destruction, the infighting that destroys Krishna's own clan, teaches that even divine energy, when contained in a body identified with clan or caste, will self-destruct. It is a warning that spiritual pride is more explosive than material greed. 2. Darsana, formal philosophical systems. Nyaya Darsana, logic and epistemology. Abhava, absence as reality. Absence is not nothing, it is a positive category of knowledge. Knowing what is not there, example, the absence of pain, is as real as the object itself. This trains the mind to scan for negative space and invisible constraints. Vyapti, invariable concomitants. The foundational algorithm of inference, if smoke, then fire. It teaches how to establish universal laws by observing invariant connections, essentially the bedrock of all pattern recognition and artificial intelligence logic. Nigrahasthana, points of defeat. In debate or internal reasoning, these are the checkmates points where a line of thinking collapses due to contradiction. Identifying these stops one from wasting energy on circular thoughts or fallacious hopes. Apavarga via tattvajnana, liberation comes from correct data. Suffering is classified as a cognitive error. If you perceive the soul as the body, you suffer correct the data processing, and suffering, dukkha, becomes structurally impossible. Adrishta, the unseen force, the specific moral latency generated by actions. Unlike simple karma, adrishta is the system memory of the universe that retains the charge of an action until the precise conditions for its release, fruit, are met. Vaisheshika Darsana, atomic theory and metaphysics. Paramanu, atomism. The universe is built of indivisible atoms that are eternal and uncreated. The creation is merely the combining of these eternal Legos. This removes the fear of death, as the building blocks of the self are indestructible by definition. Vishesha, ultimate particularity. Every single atom has a unique trait, Vishesha, that distinguishes it from every other atom. This implies that there are no true copies in the universe. Individuality is a fundamental law of physics, not an accident. Samavaya, inherence. The glue that holds the attribute to the substance, redness in a rose. It explains that you cannot separate the dancer from the dance. Reality is not objects plus properties, but a fused state of being property. Dravya Guna Karma, substance quality action. A rigorous categorization system to deconstruct reality. By labeling every experience into these bins, the meditator detaches from them, realizing this is just a quality, or this is just motion, stripping the emotional narrative from the event. Pilapaka, chemical change. The theory that heat or energy changes the atomic structure of a substance, like baking a pot. It teaches that spiritual transformation requires tapas, heat or pressure, to break the molecular bonds of the old personality and refuse them into a new structure. Samkhya Darsana, dualism and cosmology. Satkaryavada, theory of pre-existent effect. The effect already exists in the cause, example, oil is already in the sesame seed. You cannot create anything new, you can only manifest what is latent. Success is not creation but extraction. Guna dynamics, sattva, rajas, tamas. These are not moods but the three strands of the rope of reality. Sattva is information or light. Rajas is energy or motion. Tamas is mass or inertia. Every psychological state is a chemical ratio of these three tweaking. The ratio changes the state instantly. Purusha versus Prakriti, the ultimate binary. Purusha is pure consciousness, witness. Prakriti is the autopilot machinery, mind or body. Suffering is the error of the driver. Purusha thinking he is the car. Prakriti. Mahat, the cosmic intellect. The first evolutive nature is intelligence. This means the universe was thought before it was matter. Tapping into Mahat allows access to the cloud server of cosmic intelligence before it downloads into individual brains. Kaivalya, isolation. Unlike union, Samkhya's goal is aloneness, the separation of spirit from matter. It's the realization that the spirit needs nothing from the world to be complete desire, is a misunderstanding of one's own completeness. Yoga Darsana, the system, or Vyasabhashya. Vasana, subliminal impression. Every experience leaves a scent or residue in the subconscious. These residues cluster together to form samskaras, programs, that drive behavior. Yoga is the scrubbing of these scents so the mind becomes odorless, pure. Klesha, afflictions. The 5 corruptions: ignorance, egoism, attachment, aversion, and clinging to life. They are described not as sins, but as viruses in the operating system. Pratiprasava, involution, is the antivirus protocol to trace them back to their origin and delete them. Dharma Mega Samadhi, cloud of virtue. The highest state where the yogi stops even seeking enlightenment. Giving up the desire for liberation brings the rain cloud of absolute knowledge, washing away the final traces of individuality. Viveka Kyati, discriminative discernment. The razor-sharp ability to distinct seer from seen in real time. Microseconds. It is a continuous, high-frequency cognitive sorting process that prevents the eye from sticking to any passing thought. Chittabhumi, states of mind. The classification of mind into 5 states: disturbed, dull, distracted, one-pointed, and restrained. Most humans live in the first 3. Yoga begins only at one-pointed. Diagnosing your current bhumi is essential before attempting practice. Mimamsa Darsana, ritual hermeneutics. Apurva, the transcendent link. Actions die the moment they are done. Apurva is the unseen potency, or credit, generated by a ritual that carries the energy across time to deliver the fruit in a future life. It is the stored value of ethical action. Svata Pramanya, self-validity of knowledge. All knowledge is valid by default unless proven otherwise. You don't need a reason to trust your senses, you need a reason to doubt them. This reverses the burden of proof, empowering the practitioner to trust their intuition or experience until a defect is found. Mantra as law. Mantras are not prayers, they are compelling commands. If the sound is accurate, the deity must appear or act. It treats the universe as a legalistic bureaucracy, where the correct filing of the form, ritual, mandates the result. Dharma as command, Chodana. Dharma is not goodness, it is an imperative found in the Veda. It disconnects ethics from human emotion, framing duty as an impersonal cosmic necessity, like gravity. Nitya karma, obligatory duty. Actions that give no reward if done, but cause harm if omitted, like maintenance of a dam. Doing them creates a protective zero state, preventing entropy from eating away one's life structure. Vedanta Darsana, metaphysical synthesis. Adhyaropa Apavada, superimposition and negation. The pedagogical method of teaching truth. First, superimpose a definition: God is creator. To engage the mind, then negate it: God is not creator, God is pure being. To transcend the mind. It is a ladder you kick away after climbing. Bimba Pratibimba Vada, reflection theory. The jiva, individual, is a reflection of Brahman, consciousness, in the mirror of the intellect, buddhi. To clear the image, you don't scrub the face, you clean the mirror. Spiritual practice is polishing the intellect. Lakshana, implied meaning. Language cannot touch the truth. Words like Satchit Ananda are pointers, not definitions. One must catch the implied meaning, lakshartha, rather than the literal meaning, vakyartha, to grasp the infinite. Upadi, limiting adjunct. The concept that attributes, like potness for space inside a pot, are external constraints that do not affect the essence. You are human or male only due to the upadi of the body. The consciousness remains untouched space. Prarabdha karma's momentum. Even after enlightenment, the body continues to act out its destiny, like a fan spinning after the plug is pulled. This explains why enlightened beings still get sick or face trouble they are watching the fan slow down, unbothered. 3. Commentarial tradition, Pachta civilization. Shankara Bhashyas, Advaita. Maya as Anirvachaniya, indefinable. The world is neither real, sat, nor unreal, asat. It is a category defying, something that appears but vanishes on inquiry. Treating the world as a dream that feels real breaks its hypnotic hold. Sadhana Chatushtaya, fourfold qualification. Enlightenment is impossible without the four prerequisites: discrimination, dispassion, discipline, 6 virtues, and intense desire for freedom. Without these, intellectual study is merely mental gymnastics. Snake rope analogy. The fear of the snake is real, the sweating is real, but the snake is not. The moment you see the rope, the snake doesn't go away. You realize it was never there. Liberation is not a change of state, but a correction of vision. Brahmakara vritti, the specific thought wave, I am Brahman. While all thoughts are false, this specific thought is the soap that washes the cloth and then dissolves itself. It is the final mental tool used to destroy the mind. Ekajivavada, solipsistic unity. The radical possibility that there is only one jiva, you, and everyone else is a dream character in your projection. This terrifyingly empowering concept forces absolute responsibility for your entire universe. Ramanuja Bhasha's Vishishtadvaita. Sharira Shariri Bhava, body-soul relationship. The universe is the body of God. Just as you control your hand, God controls the universe from within. Matter is not an illusion, it is the biology of the divine. Dharmabhutajnana, attributive consciousness. Consciousness can expand and contract. While the soul is atomic, its awareness can expand to cover the universe, like a small lamp illuminating a large hall. Karma contracts this radius. Bhakti expands it. Aprithak siddhi, inseparable existence. The relation between God and soul is organic, like the flower and its scent. They are distinct but can never be separated. This validates the relationship with God as eternal, not just a temporary stage. Prapati, surrender, as a science, it lists the 5 components of surrender. Example: I will do what pleases you, I am helpless. It transforms surrender from a vague emotion into a technical legal transfer of one's burden to the divine. Antaryami, the inner controller. God is not just in the temple. He sits inside the heart of the electron and the human, directing their spin. Realizing this turns every biological function into a divine sacrament. Mahavabacha's Dvaita. Panchabheda, 5 eternal differences. Difference is real. God versus soul, soul versus soul. God versus matter, soul versus matter, matter versus matter. This absolute pluralism validates the uniqueness of every individual. No one ever merges or loses their identity. Bimba Pratibimba, specific refraction. You are a reflection of God. But a curved mirror reflects differently than a flat one. Your Svarupa, intrinsic nature, determines how you reflect God. Some are eternally wired for knowledge, some for devotion, some for indifference. Taras Taratamias. Visesha, the power of self-linking. How does God, who is one, have many attributes? Power, mercy, beauty. Visesha is the internal power of God that acts as a glue to hold infinite variety within a single unity without fracturing it. Mukti Yoga versus Tam Yoga, the controversial doctrine of predestination, where souls are intrinsically categorized. Some are destined for liberation, some for eternal transmigratory cycling. It's a spiritual genetics theory of unalterable nature. Amala Bhakti, devotion without any demand, not even for liberation. Loving God just because He is wonderful, with zero transaction. This is considered higher than the desire for moksha. Vakaspati, or Kumarila, or Gaudapada, critical realism and idealism. Gaudapadasa Sparsha, touchless yoga. Covered in Mendukya, but key nuance. The mind never actually contacts an object. It only contacts its own image of the object. Therefore, you are always only interacting with yourself. Kumarilas Arthapati, presumption. A method of knowledge where we assume a fact to explain a contradiction. Example: Fat Devadatta doesn't eat by day, imply he must eat by night. It teaches the mind to read between the lines and infer the invisible necessary truth. Vakaspatis Avachadavada. The theory that the self is delimited by the mind like space is delimited by a jar. It explains that the limitations belong to the jar, mind, not the space. Breaking the jar, mind, doesn't release the space was always free. Svodavada, burst of meaning. Bhartrihari or grammarian influence. Meaning doesn't come letter by letter. It comes as a sudden flash, sphoda, of insight. Language is just the trigger for this pre-existing explosion of understanding within the listener. Svata pramanya, self-evidence. The bold claim that truth is self-validating. You don't need a light to see a light. Awareness knows itself by itself. Seeking external proof for your existence is the root psychosis. IV Nidedi and statecraft literature. Arthashastra. Matsya Nyaya. Law of the fish. In the absence of the rod, danda or law, the big fish eats the small fish. Anarchy is the default state of nature. Order is an artificial construct maintained by force. Mandalas, circles of power. Then your neighbor is your natural enemy. Your neighbor's neighbor is your friend's geopolitical algorithm. It maps the inevitable friction of shared borders, predicting alliances with mathematical precision. Upada, testing of integrity. One must never trust an official or minister without testing them through temptations. Lust, fear, money, piety. Loyalty is not assumed, it is verified through engineered pressure tests. Saptanga, 7 limbs of state. The state is an organism with 7 organs: king, minister, country, fort, treasury, army, ally. If one organ fails, example, empty treasury, the organism dies. It treats governance as biology, not ideology. Kudayuddha, deceptive warfare. When the enemy is stronger, fairness is suicide. Assassination, spies, spreading rumors, and silent punishment are legitimate tools to protect the dharma of the state. Survival precedes morality. Niti Shastra, Chanakya, or Viduraniti. Visha Kanya, poison girl. The concept of weaponizing intimacy. A metaphor and literal practice for how beauty and desire can be used as the ultimate Trojan horse to dismantle an enemy from within. Apatkala, time of distress. Save wealth, for calamity save the wife. Even by spending wealth, but save the self even by sacrificing wife and wealth. A ruthless hierarchy of values for survival situations. The nature of secrets, a secret spoken to the ear is known to the world. The only secret kept is the one never spoken. Chanakya advises absolute compartmentalization of information. Kantaka Shodhana, removal of thorns. The proactive elimination of antisocial elements, corrupt traitors, spies, before they organize. A garden must be weeded daily, the state must be purged of parasites continuously. Dana as diplomacy. Giving gifts is not generosity. It is a method to buy silence, creates dependency, or sow dissension among enemies. Generosity is a weapon of statecraft. V. Medical and life science systems. Charaka Samhita. Prajnaparada. Crimes against wisdom. The root cause of all disease is not bacteria, but the intellect ignoring its own intuition. Example, eating when not hungry. Illness is the biological penalty for betraying one's conscience. Sattva Vijaya. Psychotherapy. Conquering the mind. The method of withdrawing the mind from unwholesome objects by sheer will and replacing them with wholesome ones. It treats mental discipline as the primary immune booster. Ojas, vital essence. The final refined product of digestion, after blood, flesh, bone, marrow, etc. It is the biological equivalent of glow or immunity. Wasting sexual fluid or chronic stress depletes ojas, leading to immediate loss of aura and immunity. Deshakala Patra, place-time person. There is no universal good food. Medicine is relative. Ginger is nectar in winter, but poison in summer. Health is the dynamic alignment of your biology with the specific space-time context. Yukti, rational planning. Healing is not magic. It is the strategic application of yukti, probability, and logic. The physician acts as a strategist, manipulating variables, diet, drugs, lifestyle, to outmaneuver the disease. Sushruta Samhita. Marma points, vital nodes. The 107 intersections where muscle, vessel, ligament, bone, and joint meet. These are pressure switches of the body's electric system. A strike here can kill, a touch here can heal instantly. Shalya, foreign object. The definition of surgery is removing that which doesn't belong, physical or emotional. The text treats trauma as a splinter in the mind or body that must be surgically extracted before healing can occur. Yogya, simulation training. Sushruta insisted on practicing surgery on gourds, watermelons, and dead animals before touching a human. It emphasizes muscle memory over theoretical knowledge. Your hands must know the truth, not just your head. Kshara Sutra, alkaline thread. A minimally invasive technique using a medicated thread to slice through fistulas or tumors gradually. It uses chemical cauterization to cut and heal simultaneously, an ancient smart weapon for surgery. Rakta Mokshana, bloodletting. The controlled release of vitiated blood. It operates on the principle that toxins accumulate in the venous system, draining. The stagnant pool forces the body to manufacture fresh, oxygenated blood. System reboot. VI. Grammar, language, and cognition science. Ashtadhyayi, Panini, the Shiva Sutras, the 14 sounds played on Shiva's drum, are the assembler code of the Sanskrit language. They organize the alphabet not alphabetically, but by the place of articulation in the mouth, mapping sound directly to human physiology. Pratyahara, compression algorithms. Panini uses single syllables, like AC, HAL, to represent vast sets of letters or rules. This is the world's first formal data compression system, showing how to pack infinite complexity into a finite code. Adhikara, recursive context. A heading rule that applies to all subsequent rules until cancelled. It functions exactly like scope in modern programming, teaching that context determines the meaning of an operation. Lopa, elision, as function. When a letter disappears in a grammatical operation, its function remains active, like a silent E changing pronunciation. This is the metaphysical truth, that invisible influence is stronger than visible presence. Siddha versus asiddha, the linear execution rule. From the perspective of a later rule, the operation of an earlier rule is considered done, siddha. But for some, it is not done, asiddha. This mimics the relativity of time past as fixed for the present, but fluid for the future. Vakyapadya Bhartrihari. Shabda Brahman, word as God. The ultimate reality is consciousness sound. The universe is a sentence being spoken by God. If you can trace the word back to the speaker, you find the source. Svodha, the flash of insight. Words are just noise. Meaning is a flash that happens in the listener's mind. The text distinguishes between the carrier wave, sound, and the signal, meaning. Anticipating information theory. Pashyanti, scene speech. Speech exists in 4 stages. Pashyanti is the stage where the thought is a visual whole before it breaks into linear words. Telepathy is simply communication at the Pashyanti level. Vivarta, apparent change. The word gold appears as ring. The goal doesn't change, only the name or form changes. Language creates the illusion of multiplicity in a non-dual reality. Pratibha, intuition. The innate instinct that tells a bird to build a nest, or a human to understand a sentence. It is the universal operating system pre-installed in all consciousness, transcending learned logic. 7. Music, aesthetics and consciousness engineering. Natya Shastra. Rasa, the juice of experience. Emotion, bhava, is raw material. Rasa is the refined flavor tasted by the witness. You don't feel sadness. In art, you taste the aesthetic essence of compassion, karuna. It turns emotion into nourishment. Sadharanikarana, universalization, the process where the audience forgets I am watching X character and taps into the universal emotion. The ego barrier drops, allowing a collective consciousness merge a temporary moksha. Bhava abhinaya, emotional simulation. By mechanically reproducing the physical symptoms of an emotion, glance, breath, posture, the actor induces the actual neurochemical state of that emotion. It is outside-in psychological engineering. Tandava versus lasya, the cosmic binary of rhythm. Tandava is vigorous or destructive, entropy. Lasya is gentle or creative, growth. All performance and life is a sine wave oscillation between these two poles. Rangapitha, sacred stage. The stage is consecrated as a yantra. The actors are not people, but patra, vessels, for the deities to enter. Performance is a sacrificial ritual, yajna, to propitiate the cosmic forces. not just entertainment. Sangita Ratnakara, not a Brahmin. Sound is the first manifestation of God. Musical notes, svaras, are not inventions but discoveries of the natural resonant frequencies of the chakras. Singing a note correctly physically vibrates the corresponding chakra. The 22 Shrutis, microtones. The emotional spectrum is not 7 notes or 12 semitones, but 22 specific micro-intervals. These microtones hit the cracks between emotions, triggering subtle states of consciousness inaccessible to standard tuning. Raga as therapy. Specific ragas align with specific times of day, prahar. Playing a morning raga in the evening creates biological dissonance. Matching the music to the solar cycle entrains the body's rhythm to the cosmos. Vadi Samvadi, king and minister notes. In every raga, one note is king, Vadi. One is minister, Samvadi. Others are servants. This hierarchy creates a narrative tension that guides the listener's mind through a specific emotional journey. Anahatanada, unstruck sound. Music is the struck sound, ahata, used to lead the mind to the unstruck sound, anahata, the internal hum of the nervous system. The goal of music is to end in silence, leaving the listener in the void. 8. Temple, architecture and sacred geometry. Shilpa Shastra, iconography. Talamana, rhythmic measurement. The idol is not carved artistically, it is calculated. The units are based on the angula, finger width, of the yajamana, patron. The statue is a mathematical harmonic of the worshipper, creating a resonance link. Drishimoksha, opening the eyes. The final act of carving the eyes is the most dangerous. The sculptor uses a mirror to look at the idol, because the first gaze of the deity is so powerful it can destroy the creator. It implies the creation surpasses the creator. Bhangas, stances. The flexion of the body, tribhanga, triple bend, represents the flow of prana. A straight, stiff idol is dead. A bent idol captures the moment of movement, signifying eternal dynamism and stillness. Ayati Sadvarga, 6 formulas. Complex calculations, income, expenditure, age, etc., applied to the perimeter of the structure. If expenditure greater than income in the formula, the temple will drain the community. The geometry determines the economic destiny of the land. Casting of the void. In metal casting, lost wax. The wax is melted away to leave a void for the metal. Metaphysically, it teaches that you must melt your ego, wax, to create the vacuum for the divine, molten gold, to pour in. Vastu Shastra, spatial science. Vastu Purusha Mandala. The ground is a demon, chaos, pinned down by the gods, order. Building a house is an act of pinning down chaotic earth energy into a structured grid. The central square, Brahmastan, must remain empty or open to let the lungs of the house breathe. The northeast channel, Ishanya. The trajectory of cosmic energy, Jaivik Urja, flows from NE to SW. Blocking the NE corner cuts the Wi-Fi signal of the universe, weighing down the SW corner. Traps the energy inside the house. Battery storage. Marmas of the house. Just like the body, the house grid has sensitive points. A pillar or wall on a marma point cripples the specific aspect of life associated with it. Example: finance, health. Directional deities, Dikpalas. Directions are not empty space. They are fields of influence. The south is Yama, death or justice, good for storage or discipline, bad for sleeping. The east is Indra, power, good for beginnings. Ayati Shadvarga, gain or loss formulas. Every dimension vibrates at a frequency. If the perimeter of the house creates a mathematical dissonance, the inhabitants will feel chronic subtle anxiety. Vastu aligns the house's frequency with the inhabitants' astrological chart. 9N. Time and cosmic history, cosmology. Puranic time models. Kalpa, the day of Brahma. 4. 32 billion years. A scale of time that shatters the human ego's significance. It teaches that civilizations rise and fall like breath. Our current history is less than a blink. Pralaya, dissolution. Types, Naimatika, end of day. Prakrita, end of lifespan. Atyantika, ultimate liberation. The universe has multiple delete functions. Understanding this helps one detach from the panic of the end of the world. It's just a system reboot. Manvantara, administrative era. Time is not a void, it is governed. Each era has a different Indra, or Manu, manager. This implies that the laws of nature might slightly tweak between eras. Physics is an era-specific policy. Vertical time, Lokatala. Time flows at different speeds in different realms, relativity. A few seconds in Brahmaloka is an age on Earth. Travel between realms involves time dilation, explaining why avatars descend into history. Yuga Dharma, Zeitgeist. The code of conduct changes with time. Tapas, austerity, was for Krita Yuga Dana, charity or service, is for Kali Yuga. Trying to do ancient asceticism now is like running DOS software on Windows 11, it crashes. X. Bhakti lineage literature. Vaishnava Divya Prabandham, Alvars. Nalayira Divya Prabandham, 4,000 hymns, considered the Dravida Veda. It proves that the Veda is not just Sanskrit sound but God experience. If you experience God in Tamil, that Tamil becomes Veda. It democratized sanctity. Madhurjam Bhakti, bridal mysticism. Andal's poetry treats God not as father or judge, but as lover. It bypasses the intellect or fear and utilizes the most potent human drive, eros, to catapult the soul into the divine. Kainkarya, eternal service. The goal is not to become God but to serve God. The pleasure of the service is greater than the pleasure of the self. It shifts the focus from my liberation to His pleasure. Acharya Abhimana, the idea that I am too weak to love God. I will love the guy who loves God. Relying on the Guru's love for God is a safer, faster elevator than one's own fickle devotion. Arthapanchaka, the five truths. Who am I? Who is God? What is the way? What is the obstacle? What is the goal? A diagnostic checklist to ensure the devotee isn't hallucinating progress. Shaiva Tavaram, Nayanars. Pathigam, decade of power. The hymns, Tavarams, are not just poems, they are acoustic keys to specific temples. Singing a specific pathigam at a specific shrine unlocks the stored energy of that vortex. Example, curing disease, opening doors. Charya Kriya Yoga Jnana, the 63 Nayanars demonstrated that any path works if the intensity is absolute. Kanapa, the hunter, offered raw meat and eyes. His barbaric love was superior to civilized ritual because of the intensity Vira Bhakti. Sivan Adiyar, slave of Shiva. The identity shift from citizen of the world to slave of the devotees. The Nayanar is the servant of the servant of the servant. This infinite regression of humility destroys the ego completely. Thirumrai as mantra, the compilation of these hymns is treated as a deity itself. Keeping the book in the house is equivalent to keeping a charged idol. The vibration of the Tamil verses repels negative entities. Periya Puranam, lives of saints. Reading the biographies is not history, it is satsang, company of truth. By reading the story, you tune into the frequency of that saint, allowing their city to leak into your life via resonance.